Hello everyone, we're back after yesterday's goose egg, and so let's get right into the throwing. You can see right here I'm re-wedging 3 of my pots that I messed up yesterday, and something about having a bad day of throwing, like that's sort of what you want, you want to care about something so much where like it devastates you, you know like that's a good thing to have, especially if you can have that sort of discourse internally. Like that's like the fuel that will keep you making. That's the fuel that will make sure that you will end up getting pots that you will like eventually, right? You're not going to sit down and just make good pots, just like how I'm not going to uh, you know make a good video every single time I post. And so part of it is the practice and the building up of that resistance against those things, and to be honest with yourself. Like I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to talk over 3 failed pots and act like I care about them. I want to make sure that I'm pretty honest with it, and if I messed up 3 times, I messed up 3 times. I'm gonna let it roll with the punches and keep moving forward on the next ones. And so that's what this video is. And so I'm calling this one a redemption day, or something like that. We'll see. But here I am just wedging. I was like, okay, we did 3 pots of those the quarters yesterday, and so I was like, you know what, I'll just combine it into making just 2 pots out of those 3 that I messed up. You can see I'm getting rid of some of those little holes and blemishes so that I don't have little air pockets underneath the pot when I remove it later. We're getting right back into it. This is the more medium size amount of clay, and so we get a nice sized pot out of it today. So yeah. And I started centering the clay a little bit taller than what I normally do. After yesterday's pot, as the second pot that I screwed up, that pot was actually almost really good. Collapsed at the end, that's okay, but there was something about centering that clay just a little bit taller than what I normally did that allowed me to get some more of that clay off the bottom and have some more maneuverability on the top. Sometimes when I center it so low, I really have to move a lot of clay upwards, and that can cause some stuff to be centered. So if I can have some of that on the top already, I'm cooking. And this clay is really soft still. I just did it yesterday. I leave it uncovered, but this basement is pretty damp, so it still is like really wet. But it ended up not being a problem. Sometimes if you use too soft a clay, you can struggle to get some height. Pulling out the hammer for the last bit of the centering. And you can see that top is pretty, like, a lot taller and a lot more narrow on the wheel than a lot of my other pots. If you go back and look, it's already kind of at a height that I wouldn't necessarily do normally, but it seemed to be helping a little bit. I saw somebody on Instagram try that out, and I was like, oh, I want to test it. I want to see if it works for me or not, And so we'll see. I'll keep doing it. Today's pot turned out good, so it's a good sign. Compressing that bottom a little bit. Didn't use a rib this time. Like I say, it's just kind of like my process isn't scripture. It's malleable, and sometimes I'll use the rib and sometimes I won't. It's really up to the pot every time I approach it. We get to a point where the pots will start speaking to you. Every pot becomes sort of your own verse, and not like verse for a religious sense, right? Like verse as in like a freestyle rap or something, right? And not every freestyle you're just gonna be spitting fire, you know. But you can tell I'm like really focused in this. Yesterday was like really destroyed me, so I wanted to make sure like it's gonna take my time, be a little bit slower. You know, during my pulls when I get a little bit taller, I had a tendency to anchor things back, and so trying to keep thumbs on collaring up instead of anchored back, so I can stop getting some of those really awkward undulations. And then also my pulls start coming up closer to like my chest and up, and so you can see a couple of times today where once I get closer to the top, I'm switching my hand positions, I'm switching my angle of attack on the throws. And so I was just talking about slow, but that one's pretty fast, but I think the other ones will slow down a little bit. But there's a lot of clay, a lot more. Usually I have that much clay just around the rim, and so it's kind of nice having a little bit extra clay. And I thought, okay, that's going to be good. I can make a nice shoulders on the pot that aren't going to just collapse instantly, right? Unless I want them to. I'm doing a downward pull a little bit earlier, and just trying to get some of that clay on the bottom down, and then also making sure that there's this one part on the interior of the pot where I saw that it was like the seed of a uncentered line on the ring on the throwing lines, and I just wanted to fix that before it really seeded itself into the pot. It's a little bit wide here, you know, but sometimes the clay will just tell you sort of where it wants to go, and you just gotta guide it there. You know, it's like a river or a stream. You can work against it. You can paddle against stream. You can go against the current, but you can also work with it a little bit. Say if you're sailing and the wind is, you're getting like a 45-degree angle wind. And I'm not a specialist on sailing, but you can set your boat up so you're facing a little bit this way, but it will guide you sort of across with the wind's help, right? And so that's sort of the same mentality that at least I bring into like ceramics, right? I can guide it, I can work with it. If it's trying to go some way, I can assist it there. You know, I don't have to just let it go there. And so I think that's a sort of a learning curve that you'll experience in ceramics once you do it long enough, or at least with throwing. You can see my rim is a little bit off-centered, and that just, like I said, that always happens with collaring. I've had some pots that I've made where that wasn't there at all, and it felt weird. It was like, whoa, okay, like, doesn't happen often. It feels like a strike of lightning. Maybe a lot more common than that, but just a similar feeling at least when you're with the clay. You know, just getting that elbow just in case it drags it along that rim. You just want to make sure it's can slide. You can see that this next pull, I wasn't doing it as drastic of a separation, and that that hump or that curve that I'm pulling up the ring. It's a little bit, it's not as drastic as some of the other ones I did earlier. I feel like the taller and thinner you get, the less drastic you want to make that curve. Just finishing off that pull. And you can see right there is when I shifted. So I got that right to that one point, and then I shifted, and look where my elbow is almost coming in across my body, you know? So I really shifted where I'm actually touching the clay and where that pulling of the rim or the pulling of that ring is coming up the clay there. Being really careful, making sure I keep anchoring up those thumbs. Like I say, sometimes I go like this when I collar, just making sure that you kind of anchor up that thumb on the back. It will help you out wonders. And I still have quite a bit of thickness right where that shoulders are beginning, and then I also from the shoulders down is pretty even, and so I feel a lot more confident with working on the top when those two factors are in play. And I think this is the last pull I do on the bottom. And I knew I didn't want to use a rib on it this time, and I just wanted to see if I could just get like a nice, almost centered throwing lines that are just there. Sometimes I think if you can show that your just throwing lines are there and you're not erasing them, and your throwing lines can look good. I even go back and I emphasize the throwing lines later. I just think that it actually is kind of beautiful in a lot of ways. You know, I had somebody in my undergrad or in grad school actually. They were telling me, they said, "Wow, no, like those throwing lines look so like even. They look so crisp, right?" And so I think a lot of times when you are smoothing out some of those things, you're actually deleting a lot of the personality of the pot. There I am. Look at where my attack angle is. Literally, it's uh, contorted. I don't even know if that's it sounds like a word, but it's just looks really awkward. It almost looks like a gymnast pose or something with my arm. It's just really cockeyed into the body there. And also today, I figured out one of my, the flap that I was doing on some of the pots in the videos before. I was trying to figure out how did I initially start with that idea, and here you'll see how it sort of worked out for me. I was making a bunch of these knobs on like just the throwing off the hump, and that's just taking a big mound of clay and then just centering that top a little bit and then cutting that top off after you've done throwing it. But once you go wide enough and you try to collar it back in, there'll be a part where it will kind of undulate inwards. Oh my gosh. And if you compress that top, it will really wants to go directly into the pot. And if you just keep your hand steady, it will totally make one of those blossom shapes. And I forgot that's how I naturally first came around to those like the blossom shapes. And it actually inspired me I have an idea for a pot tomorrow. And then right here, it kind of looks like a top hat, which I thought was kind of funny, but besides the point. Look at that attack angle on that wrist there, that arm, all the way in. I can feel it's really getting like thin on that top. And so I know something's gonna happen, whether it's gonna collapse or I need to start doing some sort of design on it. But what happened on this rim actually worked out really nice. I thought that it just spoke loud enough where that's all I needed to do is just make something interesting happen on the surface with throwing lines and then have some little bottom flange or a skirt, and I was like already cooking. Here I'm trying to get it thinned out a little bit on that rim. And so when I do this next collar, this is where the magic really was, I think. You can see I'm really pushing it in drastically. Boom. Oh my god. It's smooth. It has that little fold. It's just like jutting to the side ever so slightly. There's so much personality, and I'm gonna love to put one of those ceramic flowers in the top of this vase here. Just looks really nice. I think what I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to make that sort of treating that surface. You can see it's not like perfectly even after that one pull, so I was just gonna see if I could emphasize some of the throwing lines to sort of negate some of that weird undulation that's happening towards that bottom quarter. Kind of goes out then in, and so we kind of just want it to go sort of up, just lifting up the pot a little bit more. Sometimes if you have it like that little almost like love handle on the bottom of the pot, like if it was going right over the waistline of your shorts or something, right? I just want to lift that up so the pot is more full of air. It has almost looks like there's a breath to the pot, a weightlessness. You can see there I am trying to emphasize those lines. Really, like I'm like barely pressing, but where I am pressing, I'm holding it with the tension. It looks like I'm holding a gun or something. Imagine, if you've never held a gun before, it's like it feels scary, right? It's like something that's powerful, especially if it's your first time and you didn't grow up around guns, so like holding it like with that tension, that worry, that's what I'm doing. It's like I'm worrying all the way through that pole. Or that little surface treatment there. I'm just absolutely terrified. My forearm is flexing when I don't even need it to. And so that's the sort of approach that I'm bringing to it. I don't want to be pushing into the clay, but I'm really just worried, And so I think that's a good way to explain it. Here I am getting ready to make some sort of mark on that flange. Or at least try to lift that flange up first. Yeah. And as you can see, my stuff is kind of getting a little bit dirty. I think I gotta clean off my tools really, but just doing a quick scrub, and then we're ready to go. Using a sponge, so then you don't, all this stuff that gets cut off gets kind of smoothed back out into the clay, or it gets removed from the sponge. So, and also trying to get some of that water, lifting up that flange. I had an amazing idea for a pot tomorrow that I can try, but doing a similar shape to this, but then collaring in that neck so much that it just tips over. It's like leans its head over, and eventually maybe even collaring it enough, then pulling it, and then like literally letting it sit, And so those are some of the ideas that I had with that, And we'll see if it works out or not, Sponging, trying to remove some of that water. Going back under, because when I was sponged, I kind of pushed that skirt back down. I wanted to lift it up enough where I can easily just fit one of my fingers right underneath there. And this pot was already so simple. I thought it only needed one little moment, and I wanted it to be on the side of the pot. And so, oh yeah, here I don't know what I touched, maybe like the end of the wooden knife, but I got a bunch of little like hard crumbs, and I just did not want those crumbs on my fingers when I was trying to do this moment here. Oh, this one, just flick that up, just that moment. Boom. Oh shit, that's what you're looking for. You just want that right, and I feel like that has a lot of drama to it. And there's the pot today, and it almost looks like a picture a little bit, but once we put that flower in there, I can already tell that this pot's going to be great. Maybe I can have some sort of glaze that's going to highlight breaks at the edges right around all those little rims, or maybe it pools a little bit darker, so it really heightens some of those lines. I think it'd be really beautiful. But, alright, thanks for watching. All the best. Strong mentality. Peace.